Sometimes there's nothing more aggravating than get laundry soap, but I've got a laundry room hack that's gonna work. I'm gonna take a 1/2 inch sheet of plywood, I'm gonna lay some painter's tape out on it, and then I'm gonna make some marks. Once I get that done, I'm gonna go ahead and put my ruler down and mark a straight line. What this does is it gives it a nice clean edge when I'm cutting plywood. Once I get it cut, I just take the tape and I pull it away from the edge and it gives it splinter free. I'm going to do this all over the plywood and I got to get top, bottom, sides. But the next step is on one of the sides, I'm going to pre-drill some holes. Using a 1-inch paddle bit, I can cut through and drill these holes on each side about 1 inch from the edge. Then I'll take a level or straight edge and I'm going to mark on the top of each hole, go ahead and use a jigsaw and cut it through. Once I get this done, I'm going to sand those edges just a little bit on the inside there, and then I can use a Forstner bit. This one's 1.5 inches wide. I'm just going to give it a slight drill on this bottom piece. Then I need to lay all my pieces out. What I'm going to do is stain all the pieces to the box before I put it together. There's nothing worse than getting a box or putting some project together and trying to get all the edges done after you put it together. What I need to do is just get this done and let it dry for about an hour or two. And then where I drilled out with the Forstner bit, I'm just going to put some walnut in there and make it stand out a little bit. Now it's time for glue. A lot of people don't realize that glue actually can be stronger than screws or nails. But what I do is I put the glue down and then I use some pin nails to hold it together while the glue dries. After about 2 hours, it's really strong. I'm going to turn this piece over because that's the bottom, and I'm going to glue all 4 sides and put the bottom piece right on. I'm going to get it lined up just nice and then use that pin nailer just to put down and hold those in. If you see some glue popping out, I'm going to wipe that off too. I didn't stain the bottom, but that's okay. Next, I'm going to put a hinge on for the top lid, put that together, and then I'm going to put it in place. The first thing I want to do is make sure it matches everything in my laundry room. I'm going to put my fabric sheet box in there and pull it right through. It's going to look like a Kleenex tissue box. Then I'm going to put the soap on top, and as you can see, I've got a slight bevel to make sure that it drips or it drains towards the front. Then look at this. Isn't that great? It just dispenses right there, and if it drips at all, I can go ahead and catch all the drippings and it doesn't get on the washing machine. Oh, and don't forget, if you like to keep the lint for fire starters, guess what? There's room in there also, those paper toilet roll holders, and stick some lint in there. I think this hack turned out pretty good, and I hope it inspired you to probably build your own simplistic little soap dispenser. Thanks for watching Home Talk, and we'll catch you next time.
Run on over to the Dollar Tree and grab one of these blue baskets. What can you do if you don't have enough cabinet space? Grabbed a ruler and I'm marking where exactly I want each of these bins to go on my wall. Now for stability, you can choose exactly how you'd like to adhere these baskets to your wall, adding 2 screws to each basket or possibly 4. Now that all the baskets are up, it's time to load them up. While I was at the dollar store, I grabbed one of these over the cabinet door hangers and they hook nicely into the holes onto the baskets. For this hack, you're going to need some hooks. I'm going to grab some bins that I found at the dollar store and I'm going to hook them onto the hook. So now I can separate out my darks from my whites. I'm going to take an over-the-door hanging rack and I'm going to hook it over the top of my door. This is perfect for ironing board. I'm going to grab my iron and I'm also going to hook it onto the over-the-door hanging rack. And it doesn't take any cabinet or counter space or shelf space.
We're going to quickly sweep the floor and we're going to sand the floor with some 220 sandpaper. We're going to clean the floor with TSP, trisodium phosphate. Okay, I've got my Wise Owl stain eliminating primer. I'm using a dense foam roller so I give a real smooth finish. Okay, we let our primer dry overnight. We're ready for our base coats. We're going to be applying 2 coats of Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel Antique Villa, and now I'm going to mask off the baseboards. I'm going to use a little spray adhesive on this stencil. Center your stencil on the tile. Because my tile floor has a slight texture to it, I'm choosing to use a brush. It's going to give me a tighter edge than using a roller. It's time to pull the masking tape, do a few touch-ups, and apply 3 coats of top coat to protect this beautiful floor. I'll be using Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel Clear Satin as my top coat. Didn't this tile floor makeover turn out great?
I'm not a fan of doing laundry, and when it comes to folding clean clothing, there's not enough room in my laundry room. I began by cutting 1 by 12-inch pine to make the storage cabinet. I made the outside box first. I used a Craig jig to make pocket holes to join my pieces together. This, along with wood glue, would keep everything in place. I measured for my shelves, marking and cutting them to fit, and screwed them in place. Now that the cabinet was made, it was time to make the table. I used 1/2-inch MDF, which I measured and cut to size. I attached a piece of 1x2 to the bottom of the MDF with glue and brads. I also made the legs for the table out of 1x2s. I painted the entire cabinet gray using paint from another project. For the back of the table, I used chalkboard paint and applied 2 coats. When it was dry, I flipped the table over and applied wallpaper to the other side. This would be my tabletop. To attach the table to the cabinet, I used a piano hinge. I screwed it to the wallpaper side of the tabletop and the bottom front of the cabinet. I used another hinge and attached it to the top of the blackboard side and to the top of the legs. For the back of the cabinet, I attached a 1/4-inch piece of plywood. The cabinet was very heavy, so I used a French cleat as my hanger. There are 2 pieces, and one screws into the back of the cabinet, and then one screwed into the wall. Where I wanted to place the cabinet, there were no studs available, so I drilled holes and put in plastic anchors. To keep the table attached to the cabinet, I fastened a heavy-duty magnet to the front. Now I have a place to fold my clothing, extra storage, and a chalkboard to write notes. It's a win-win.